Restart. Because this is on Hudson Cable, we are going to try to start crisply at the moment we're supposed to start. So hopefully we'll be able to do that in how many seconds? Now. Welcome. It is great to have you here and out there, those who join us on cable as well as those in the sanctuary. My name is Peter Wiley. For those who don't know me, I'm one of the ministers here at First Congregational Church. And I just want to give a brief piece related to our setting that we're in, and everybody on one side, that back 25 years ago was the first chance that I had to take part in very significant effort in resettling a couple of refugees in Connecticut, and we had two, and one of them was Lloyd Johnson. And Lloyd, because he had to go down into town, we finally were able to get him a bike. And we presented him with the bike, and he looked at it, and he was from Liberia, and he said, back home, I would have been lucky just to have a tire. And I share that because that's why we were intended to have the whole sanctuary being used and 2 TV monitors. But knowing that many refugees are feeling totally blessed to have even half of what we might expect, we ended up not using that monitor. No, it just didn't work. So we are together, and we are thankful to have you here. We are thankful to share in this space that we are a congregation that has been deeply embedded in seeking to care for what it means to partner with those who are seeking to resettle refugees for quite some time. And we are grateful to share tonight in this effort to learn more and to talk about Afghan refugees. So without going any further, welcome. And Jen, we are grateful to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's an honor and pleasure to be here with you to share a little bit about, you're going to get to hear a little bit about the efforts of the International Institute of Akron. That's over 100 years old. It's been in Summit County helping our new folks coming to Summit County. You'll get to learn a little bit more about that. And my name's Jen Batten. I'm the interim coordinator for the Hudson Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Alliance. We've been coordinating efforts, which you'll learn a little bit more about, the partners across the city of Hudson to help our newest residents in Summit County to give them a warm Ohio welcome. And it's a pleasure to introduce to you our executive director of the International Institute of Akron, Madhu Sharma, who's going to give you a little bit of an overview of some of the efforts of the IIA and also some of the efforts that our community partners across the city of Hudson have been working together to help support. And also, we have Kevin Walters, who's the community outreach specialist for the International Institute of Akron. So please join me in welcoming our guests from the International Institute of Akron. Thank you.
Jen, do I just use the arrows? Welcome, everybody. Thank you for inviting Kevin and I tonight to present, to talk to you a little bit about what we've been up to for the past few months. I'm running from downtown to this meeting, so I'm so grateful that we didn't have the snow we've had in the last 2 weeks. And I want you to know that we are bustling at the International Institute, and we're thrilled to be bustling because for 4 years prior, resettlements were really low at the Institute, and in fact, we went through 2 rounds of layoffs. Jen was with us until we engaged in that first round of layoffs. Not my decision, by the way. So I want to share with you who we are. I can't see all your faces, but oddly I recognize some eyes out there because I know I've seen some of you on Zoom calls. Just weeks after U.S. troops left Afghanistan and people from Afghanistan were evacuated to safety, I heard from your community. They were reaching out to us simply from watching the national news and Googling, where's our local resettlement agency? And fortunately, they found the Institute. I'm so grateful, Kevin, that we have a website up and that people were able to connect to us and that your community so effectively and efficiently mobilized to help us. We were overwhelmed with the outpouring of volunteer support, of item donations. We had so many item donations, I can tell you that we had to say, stop, we have too much. And I think that might still be the case right now.
Leveling off, so.
Yes,
Making use
so
of everything.
let me tell you a bit about who we are for those of you who are new to our mission and to our work. Maybe some of you didn't even know about us in North Hill in Akron. We've been in the community for over 100 years, and at the heart of our mission has always been to help immigrants start their new life in the United States and to really help foster a sense of home for immigrants in our community. Today, our mission is to enrich the vitality of our community by helping immigrants reach an empowered life with dignity, connection, and belonging. This is a recent update in our mission statement, but as I've said, really the work we do has not changed over the many years that we've existed. We have been engaged in refugee resettlement support for, since 1970. It was the very outset and beginning of the federal resettlement program, and the Akron community was part of that history. So we've resettled people from so many parts of the world. At the time, it was predominantly Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. More recently, I thought it would interest you all to know the countries that we're resettling today and that we've resettled in the last probably 5 to 10 years. As you may know, if you're watching the news, we are welcoming people who are arriving here from Afghanistan. For those of you who want to know, how do we refer to people from Afghanistan? I always say people from Afghanistan, but they're also called Afghans. If you wish to generalize and have a word and know, is it Afghani, is it Afghan, I can tell you that our research showed it's actually Afghan. We've resettled people from Bhutan. We are no longer resettling people from Bhutan because the camps in Nepal for people who were essentially kicked out of Bhutan are pretty much empty. It took 40 years to resettle people from Bhutan, but we've finally completed that process as a world, I should say. Akron was engaged in the very beginning in welcoming people from Bhutan, so you may know already that that's a very vibrant, larger population that IIA has served in recent years. And I think the last time we resettled someone from Bhutan was 2018, and most people don't know that. We still welcome people who resettled to the United States because, interestingly, secondary refugees are coming to the Akron area from Washington, from the state of Texas, from other states that they were resettled to. They're choosing to live in Akron and move here because they're hearing from other community partners that it's an affordable place to live, and we have a strong, welcoming community. We are continuing to resettle people from Burma. There's kind of different waves of individuals that are coming from Burma. Most are people that are Karen and Mon, and they speak those languages. Some are Burmese. More recently, we're resettling people who are being persecuted for being Muslim. We also resettled, this is probably, the last 3 years, the largest group of resettlements we had were people from the Democratic Republic of Congo in Africa. And they speak various languages that are listed here on this slide, but many of them also speak French. And then we've had several resettlements from Iraq as well. More recently, and I think since October 1st, all of our resettlements have been from Afghanistan and people that were evacuated from Afghanistan. I think this month, February, am I right? We are starting again to resettle people from other parts of the world. So we know that the federal government is starting to shift to reopen refugee resettlement, and I think they're seeking to manage, and they have sought to manage the crisis from our troops having left Afghanistan. Our departments and how we serve refugees are listed here. So we teach people English. job skills, life skills through our education program. It's one of our key programs that we're hoping to really vitalize and rebuild. And one of the biggest barriers for learning English, learning your life skills and job skills is transportation, getting to our classes, because people obviously don't drive when they first arrive here. So a lot of today's meeting and our ask is to help us with that large barrier. Employment counseling, we help people really kind of navigate what life skills they need and job skills they need. We don't teach job skills, we teach basic skills of navigating a workplace, mostly in the manufacturing industries that are really desperate for a workforce. This morning we had, usually once or twice a month we're meeting with local employers who are asking us to help create some solutions for their workforce shortage. So we're hoping, if they have a welcoming workplace, that some of the people that we resettle may be able to get good paying jobs and start their lives and really just start to become independent. We have immigration legal services. I, by profession, am an immigration attorney, and I'm really proud of the work we do in the immigration legal department. For Afghans, when our troops left, we already had people from Afghanistan living in Akron, because we have already been resettling those individuals who were helpful to the U.S. military. They come as what's called an SIV, a special immigrant visa. Well, they reached out to us because they wanted to know, how can I make sure my family is evacuated, or my friends or my loved ones are evacuated? Our legal team, within 2 weeks, consulted with over 300 individuals that were overseas and who were seeking to be evacuated. So we also mobilized, and we kind of stepped into an area we never had to do before, where we had to actually help people stay alive. We were not experts in it, but we definitely felt at least we were able to help by counseling individuals who thought there was nothing they could do. And sometimes that was the case, but most of the time we were able to give them at least direct information about how evacuations were being implemented at the airport in Kabul. We provide language access services. That means, people when they arrive, they don't speak English always. If they do speak English, they're learning English, so they're English language learners. And our interpreting and translation department, we hire contract interpreters that we send out to local hospitals and courts and all of our community partners who want to be able to serve and work with the communities that we resettle. They can hire our contract interpreters to provide language access to the people that are new to our community. And then refugee resettlement, that's why we're here today, that's why I'm speaking to you. It's really a case management program, and I think there's a slide coming up where it kind of describes what we do in the refugee resettlement program. The case management program really to help people in the first 90 days with the basic needs of survival as they first arrive and start their lives here. But we also have social workers that provide extended social services, so we are not just a 90-day resettlement agency. We seek to continue that relationship of social support services for individuals, or refer them to our community partners. And we also, this is little known, but we also serve individuals who are survivors of human trafficking. We have quite an incidence of labor trafficking in our community, and our legal department and our case management team has a contract with the federal government to help with. Summit County has a hotline that you can call if you're concerned about trafficking or if you think you may be trafficked, and our organization serves those who are labor trafficked. There are other organizations in our community who serve individuals who are predominantly sex trafficked. So I don't think everybody knows that about Summit County, but we are partners with the Summit County Human Trafficking Collaborative. I think I'll move on to, I'm going to fly through some of these because this is quite detailed. But I already kind of described our education program. I think the goal of the program is important. Our goal is really to assist students from other language backgrounds, and in order to teach them how to use English effectively, how to integrate into our community, and really to adapt to life here. Recently, that involves educating them about what is happening in the pandemic or post-pandemic, or I think we're still in the middle of it. But just teaching them the protocols, helping them understand how our community is responding. And sometimes that means, teaching them what the signs that they're seeing on doors with masking protocols, what those, translating those and showing them what those images might mean. In our employment team, we are, our key really for employment services is to help people assess their skill level and then help them find that first job, and to vet and advocate for them with employers to ensure that the jobs that we're linking them to are jobs that will protect their basic rights as new Americans or new community members. We do a lot of resume building, interview skill workshops, and then also just helping them navigate learning how to ask for a day off, and learning the way the American workforce is structured, and often what the culture of the American workforce is as compared to the countries from which they come. We also, I think, our employment services are not just restricted to refugees. Our education programs are not just restricted to refugees. We invite anyone who's a non-English speaker or anyone who qualifies for the government programs that we provide for employment services to register for services. Our legal team, I think I described this somewhat. We do have 4 full-time immigration attorneys. We have a lot of interns from the local law schools, University of Akron being our largest. Kevin helps us recruit law clerks, and we also work very closely with other community legal service providers for advocacy purposes. Our attorneys specialize in family immigration, asylum law, removal defense. We do citizenship applications, and we prepare visas for survivors of crimes and human trafficking as well. Right now, we do have 4 full-time attorneys, and we have 4 legal assistants as well. I think here it's mentioned that we have accredited representatives, and not to get in the weeds too much, but for those who don't know, the Department of Justice actually allows non-lawyers to practice immigration law if they're accredited and if they're with an accredited agency. And I'm quite proud to admit that Ohio was among one of the first states to participate in that program, and the International Institute of Akron was the first nonprofit in the state of Ohio to register for the Department of Justice accreditation program. So we've been providing legal services since 1954, right here in Akron, for immigrants. Most of our clients for interpreting and translation are governmental entities, the courts, law enforcement, hospitals, healthcare, social service providers. But we often work with community partners as well who may need to hire an interpreter for the day, for an event, or for, I think sometimes we have a church that wants to have a donation drive, and they want to serve the particular community that we serve. So we usually lend them an interpreter for that event. And I think most of us understand that, especially right now, during this, since 2020, at the start of the pandemic to now, there's been a lot of trauma in our communities. There's been a lot of adjustment disorder. There's been a lot of need for social services support. The communities that we serve, they suffer significant trauma before they even arrive to the United States, but just the process of coming to this country and adapting once you're here has levels of trauma as well. And then when you add to it what the world is going through in the pandemic, in the case of Afghans who we've recently resettled, we've been engaged with this country for 20 years in a war. I think what's the most telling is that we have a close relationship, and they have a lot more information about Western life but it's not necessarily accurate information. So our goal in the social services team is really to ensure that adaptation has, a cushion to it, so we can help them adapt, help them understand what they're facing, and then also refer them and navigate them to community partners who might be able to treat any kind of illnesses they may have, any kind of trauma that they've suffered where they might need some, specific professional care. Our social services team makes sure that we work closely with our community hospitals and partners for mental health support. And obviously the ADA is so, the ADM board is so instrumental. We're part of that board in serving immigrants and refugees. I think, and this is a list of our community partners here, and you can see here that Jen, you did a beautiful job of really encapsulating the various different ways that we're connected to your community. I know there are people who I've coffeed with and who open their garage to collect item donations for us. Your name isn't here, but we know that this community came together through the DEI Alliance, and I was blown away in comparison to other communities that sought to help. You guys really organized yourself so that Kevin and I didn't have to. I know, Jen, you were instrumental in that. So I do want to thank you. Is this the point at which I turn it over to you? I do want to thank you, but I also want to let you know I mentioned transportation, and I think that's the theme of our ask today. So just know that one of our key barriers for all the programs, for all the assistance we seek to provide, as you can imagine, transportation is one of the key barriers. Our bus, the Akron bus systems take about an hour to get to Hudson. That's just one example. If I had to come from my office to this meeting, it would take me an hour on the bus line. It's not to say our clients learn, we teach them how to take the bus, they get bus training, but we're looking for other solutions as we need them to keep people going to their medical appointments, to their job interviews, and also to other appointments with the federal government that they may have. Jen? Thanks for your time.
So I am honored to be able to share with you some of these many partners that you see up on the slide here, their logos, that have been working collaboratively. So we have a call once a month when you see lots of these partners and others who weren't able to join us this evening, who are working with us. If you represent an organization that you don't hear this evening, you can reach out to Sue Weimer or Liz Teed, and we'll include you on those calls too once a month to see how we can provide additional support. What I'd like to do is Hudson High School, their service learning department. So we're going to have our partners, if those of you in the audience could come up that represent some of the other partners, come on up here, and we'll have them each share a little bit about the good work that they're doing. Hudson High School Service Learning, as you can see, have done some really neat things. Our education organizations here in the city of Hudson, they've done service learning lessons where they have helped the young people learn about Afghan tribal identity and culture, the historical background of the conflicts in Afghanistan, and comparisons to the Vietnamese refugee situation of the 70s. In addition, our Hudson City Schools have invited former refugees from countries in Congo and Bhutan to come and share with students their personal stories. In addition, the students have donated, and they've been so creative in their support, decorated gift bags with welcoming cards in multiple languages. And you'll see there 235 rolls of toilet paper that the kids collected, the students, 219 tubes of toothpaste, I asked them for their numbers, and 229 toothbrushes. So their next focus is they're working on raising funds for the van. And what I love about the service learning at Hudson High School that works in collaboration with Rotary, and they're supported by Rotary here in Hudson, is that they're hosting a community-wide celebration in North Hill in Akron in late May, where the students and community members can come together and build some good relationships. So I'm going to hand it over here to the Hudson Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Alliance, one of the co-chairs here, Joan Sauer, and she'll tell you a little bit about what this nonprofit has been working on. Thank you.
Well, before I start, I just want to tell you what I think is a cute story about networking. And I got a call from Patty Hahn, who's a member of this church, and she's a local realtor in town. And she was helping an elderly woman downsize at her house. And she says, Joan, I have all these bags of all these linens and towels and bedspreads. Can you use them? And I'm thinking, well, I don't know, but I'll find a place. And so I said, bring them over to my garage. and then I thought, and that was back when they needed more of the bedding and that for the International Institute. I called down there, and my friend and I took, I think we had like 6 giant garbage bags filled with things. And I said, well, now we've got 2 elderly ladies in the car, so we're going to need some help to get these out. And they have lovely facilities now at St. Thomas Hospital. And we drove around to the door, and there came 5 people helping us. It was just wonderful, and it was so gratifying. And that's just an example of how I think the networking works around here. So, you know, if you have anything to donate, don't throw it away. We'll find a use for it. I'm co-chair of the DEI in Hudson with James Greenwood, who's at the Academy. And our main thrust, we said, what does the International Institute really need? And they really need a van, a new van. They have an old van, and they really need a new van to transport the, you know, to all the different things that they offer for their people. And so with Hudson Community Foundation, the Alliance itself has raised $5,200, and I think through Hudson Community Foundation we're allowed at about $15,600, somewhere around there. So we need to get to 50. So that's the main thrust, but you could see how important that would be. And I think that would help you with a great many things. So, all right, so that's it for me, and I'll turn it over to Laura.
Good evening. I'm Laura Jones. I'm a member of this church, and I'm also connected with the DEI Alliance. And when I was getting emails, I thought, oh, this is just right up the alley for First Congregational Church, and I connected Sue Weimer and Chris Stair, who run most of our outreach programs here at our church, with Jen, and Sue called me the next week, and she's like, I'm so impressed with everything they're doing. We want to get involved, and it's just been really great. So I'm also the chair of the outreach board here at our church, and we have been contributing in multiple ways, financially, but as well with all the great connections that Sue and Chris have in Akron. So we've donated a significant amount of money towards the purchase of the van as well. Liz Teed, one of our board members and a member of this church, has gotten really involved and went out and used some of our funds to buy 40 rice cookers to donate. And we've also connected the refugees with business owners who are looking to hire people. And we've also connected them with another one of our partners, Trinity UCC. They have a clothing room that's stocked full of clothes that they are able then to come and get clothes from there. Thank you. Oh, am I supposed to? No, that's right.
Hi, good evening. My name is Wanda Bosch. I am representing Western Reserve Academy. I am Director of Community Outreach there, as well as the Science Department Chair, and I'm also a member of the Hudson DI Alliance. So the community, the WRA community, we actually are very passionate about this program, especially our WRA service leaders, but in regards to the whole community, what we decided to do is, we went back and forth about the needs of the Institute, but since we're a boarding school, the majority boarding school, we have done many fundraisers to actually donate. We donated pillows. There were around 35 pillows. We donated 35 laundry baskets. We had a toy drive. Then the whole community with advisors, we created welcome cards with personalized messages as well as welcome signs. And one of our video editing classes from the Innovation Lab, they're creating a welcome video which they are actually currently creating, and it will be ready probably in like a week and a half. And so that will be given to the Institute. It's created by the students, and so it'll be, a very welcoming and warm video for the families and for the individuals. As well, we are also dedicated to raising funds for the van as well. We are currently having a crushogram, which we have some donations for breast cancer awareness, but some of that is going to go to the donation of the van. And this is an ongoing thing with the community and the service leaders, so we're very excited to participate. And thank you for allowing us to do that. Thanks.
Hello, good evening. I'm Consuelo Blom, and I'm here representing the International Women's Club of Hudson. We are a group of roughly 60 ladies who are mostly from different countries around the world, including the US, of course, and we have been meeting for almost 30 years, once a month. And we're basically a social, friendly group that we like to learn cultures from each other. And we decided when we heard about this wonderful drive to help the people of Afghanistan, we wanted to get involved in this community effort. So we started our involvement little by little, and in October or November, we collected a lot of clothes. And then we thought, what else can we do? So we planned our December meeting, which is normally a Christmas holiday gathering, and we decided it was going to be our gift giving to your organization. And we invited Jen and we invited Madhu, and they came to our meeting, and they gave us a wonderful, very inspiring and stimulating presentation with everything that they're doing. And at that meeting, we were able to collect a lot of, I don't have here this slide, there we go. And at that meeting, we were able to collect a lot of necessary items, a lot of new pillows, a lot of cleaning supplies, a lot of garbage cans, light bulbs, welcome bags, and then we all made little bags with gloves and scarves, and maybe we had masks also, since we all needed them. So here we have a picture of one of our cars full of everything that we donated and the gathering we had at that time. And at that meeting, we also talked about the need, the vital need that they had for a van. And some of our members very generously donated a good amount of money. So it was a very stimulating night, and we thank them because we all became very inspiring in wanting to help, and we want to continue to help as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So you can hear the many partners across the city of Hudson have been working together. Rotary wasn't able to join us this evening, but the Rotary Club of Hudson, Ohio has been promoting cash donations for the van, and Hudson Community Foundation will share a little bit more about how folks can contribute as well through a goodwill offering, and they've raised over $1,500, and they're working on additional contributions. They also support the Service Learning Club at Hudson City Schools and at Western Reserve Academy. And in addition to that, there is a Clock Tower Rotary, which is also taking on the efforts to raise additional funds, and they meet at lunchtime here in Hudson. And so we're really happy that Rotary has also been a partner. What I'd like to do is hand it over now to Amy Jordan, who's the Executive Director at the Hudson Community Foundation. She's going to share with you a little bit about how the foundation has been working to help support the International Institute of Akron and our collective efforts here in the city of Hudson. And then following Amy, there'll be opportunities for questions and answers for Madhu and Kevin here so that you can ask and learn a little bit more about what you'd like to hear. So thank you. Amy?
Good evening. It's wonderful to be here and representing Hudson Community Foundation, but More so, it's such a pleasure to be amongst these amazing people that are working in our community to do such good work. And I want to personally thank Jen Batten for her tireless efforts in this initiative for Hudson DEI, as well as for the Institute. So on your screen, you'll see here, as described tonight, the initiative is to raise funds for the transportation van, and the goal is $50,000. We're at $15,600. So thank you to Madhu and Kevin tonight for sharing your presentation and the efforts that are happening at the Institute. So as you can see on the screen, there's 3 easy ways to support us. You can go to our website, and that's myhcf.org. There you can make a contribution by credit card. You can mail your check to our P.O. box. You could call us at the office, or if some of you out in the attendees tonight have a fund with us, please call, and I can help you make that transfer to support this such needed cause. And then we do thank you on behalf of the foundation for your support in advance, but as a community, let's get together and let's meet this goal of 50,000.
So here is Amy's contact information, and I'll leave that on the screen while we do, for a short time here, while we do some questions and answers with Madhu and Kevin. Let me ask, Liz and Sue, do we want to have a mic for the folks in the community, or how would you like to do the Q&A? Sure. Great. So the question from the audience is, one, tell us a little bit more about what does it mean to be a refugee, and then tell us about the transition from when someone leaves their home country and comes to the United States. So I'm going to hand it over to Madhu from the International Institute of Akron. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Sue, I shared a different presentation with you all the first time. If you've been watching the news, you know our troops pulled out of Afghanistan at the end of July of 2021, and it was sudden, right? I think we were all knew it was coming someday, but we didn't know it was going to be so sudden. To first respond to your question about, what was their journey and how did they arrive here, if you were watching the news, you probably saw some images of people from Afghanistan fleeing to the airport in Kabul, really just praying that they could get on a plane. One of the U.S. military planes that was evacuating our troops and residents of Afghanistan out of Afghanistan. There were priority individuals that were allowed to board those planes. We're seeing that there was also, they allowed, out of probably humanitarian motivation, they allowed people on the plane that didn't meet those priorities. Most people that were initially evacuated were residents of the United States. They had lived here already under some, whether they were U.S. citizens or they were permanent residents, but they were home visiting or they were living in Afghanistan again. They had ties to the U.S. that were immediate family members, like, spouses or children or parents that were living here, sometimes siblings. They were the first priority to be evacuated from the airport in Kabul, and then it wasn't days later that the airport in Kabul was closed down. And we were not, our clients were not, or I should say, people from Afghanistan were no longer able to get into the airport to be evacuated. And then it became a very concerted effort by the U.S. military to negotiate for, allowing, as a kind of diplomatic method for allowing those individuals to come to the gate at the airport where they would be able to board a plane and be evacuated. 54,000 people were, in fact, evacuated. Initially, 8,000, and I'm doing this off the top of my head, I hope I'm remembering correctly, but initially 8,000 were airlifted to the United States immediately, and they were at 10 different military bases in the United States, and they were processed at the military bases in a way that normally takes 4 years to process people outside of the country as refugees. You asked what the definition or describe what a refugee is. I don't think it's so important to understand the legal definition. I think lay people know. But I do want to share with you that there is an international legal definition that the UN first adopted, and that the U.S. we adopted it as law in 1950. And it is just, a person that's being persecuted, or someone who has been persecuted in the past, or who would be persecuted in the future, based on one of 5 grounds: their religion, their ethnicity, their race, their membership in a particular social group, or their political opinion. And that persecution is happening at the hands of the government or people the government is unable and unwilling to control. In this case, it's the Taliban. And so the definition of a refugee in this case, I think the legal definition says one thing, and then when you hear me describe it and think of what we already know about our engagement and our military engagement in Afghanistan for over 20 years, it makes sense that the people who are coming ought to be coming to the United States as refugees. There's all types of legal hurdles that, technically they aren't living here as refugees because they were airlifted out and they weren't processed in the normal way that a refugee is processed. That's for Washington to figure out. What I personally don't refer to the people we serve as refugees anyhow, because 5 minutes after they're here, this is their home. Let them define their identity, and if they want to be Akronites, if they want to be Hudsonites, if they want to live in Cuyahoga Falls, let them say they're Americans, then that's soon what the words they would be using to describe themselves. And then one day maybe they'll say I was once a refugee and this is now my home. But that definition is important, I think, so people understand that it is a humanitarian basis of coming to the United States. And those who came here, we kind of refer to them right now as evacuees. We know, I told you only 8,000 were airlifted into the U.S. to military bases. Those bases are nearly empty. They will be empty by next week. And then there are, the rest of the 54,000 are living in lily pads in, I think, 6 different countries. And they're already being processed overseas, but they will then come to the military bases and their processing will be completed here in the United States. We hope that by the end of this year that they will be able to just complete their refugee processing so they don't have to go to U.S. military bases, because that time at the military base, I think it's a difficult transition to life in the United States, to live on a U.S. military base. It's a barracks, essentially. And those barracks are existing overseas at these lily pads as well. So, and people are waiting. They're waiting to start their life after a pretty, I don't even know how to describe it without using inflammatory words, but I think that's a shocking shift in life, to one day be living and the next day be on a plane to who knows where, but to safety. So that's our goal, really, is to understand that for the people we serve and make sure that as they come, we're approaching it with some cultural sensitivity to that. And then also knowing that it's very complicated. People who have some sense, most people that we've resettled have not a real strong connection to the United States, but people that are coming from Afghanistan have been hearing about the Western world and the United States for over 20 years, and many worked with our military very closely. In fact, 32 of the individuals we've resettled are single men who worked with our military. So they already have a sense of what life was supposed to be because they have friends that were in the military and who are US citizens who told them what life was like here. And as you all know, that life takes a long time to access. And the history of immigrants in this nation, it's always roughest on the first generation, right? It's a transition. I'm looking in the audience, and I know some of us have experienced it, and thankfully not in the way that the people we're now serving have. But I can tell you one thing is the population that we're serving always, doesn't matter from where they come, there's a resilience. And I think that's what they have in common with Northeast Ohioans. Let's hope they gain some resilience to weather, though, because I'm certainly not. I moved here from California, and it was a rough 3 weeks. So, but we know that most people we resettle are coming from warm climates. So the coats and the things that you guys donated were very well used. I think they were needed as well. Well, I mean, I'm an immigration attorney, and I'm going to get way too in the weeds on that question because, sorry, she asked what is the difference between a refugee and an undocumented immigrant, and I'm stating that as an immigration attorney, I could get really in the weeds legally, but generally, to me, the definition of somebody who's fleeing from civil strife and war is the same for somebody who's seeking asylum in the United States and someone who is coming to the U.S. as a refugee. Somebody who's here and living here undocumented also probably fled, and frequently it's because the Department of State does not allow the United Nations to engage in refugee camps on the Americas side of the globe. So the crisis we see of undocumented immigrants living here from Mexico and the Northern Triangle, Central American Northern Triangle, and even other parts of the world, those are individuals that couldn't access the UN system of resettlement. We do have humanitarian relief for anybody who's living in this country. It's just a very difficult and very unfair process. It has way too much discretion, and there's not a lot of sound legal definitions. It's kind of an innocuous area of law. But in my opinion, the definition is important, but the difference is just humans that have probably more in common than differences. And I truly believe that when we as Americans seek to, I call it the halo horn effect, make one immigrant better than the other one because of why they came and how they came, and that it's really disserving the history of this nation. And it's kind of, these definitions change with the laws, but the history of this nation it's always built on we need immigrants to fill our workforce and our economy and our really our communities and add vitality to our communities.
But refugees, once they seek asylum and they enter the United States, then they are legal in this country, right?
So I don't actually, that legal, illegal thing is something the media does. So they are here, they have a status in the U.S. and the other person does not have a status in the U.S. That's correct. Yes, I'm sorry, behind you?
I wanted to ask about how many refugees have you resettled so far?
So I think at the end of February, because we have a little bit of a projection of the next 2 weeks, we will have resettled since October 1st. I'm not even counting from before then because they weren't coming from Afghanistan, but we've resettled nearly 200 already. People from Afghanistan. We also have individuals coming this month, very excited, from other parts of the world, from Congo and Burma. So I can see that the federal government is starting to resume normal resettlements, which is good news.
So then you referenced the fact that there are people, more Afghans that are going to be coming to the military bases. Then do you anticipate receiving more Afghans at some point?
It will be one of the, yeah, we've been resettling Afghans since 2013. So it has always been, since 2013, IIA has welcomed people from Afghanistan. So people have been resettled as what I've just, the people that worked with our military are definitely facing potential persecution. So when things are very unsafe for them, they and their families had access to our Department of State process that is designed specifically for those who helped our military. Unfortunately, that process is more than 2.5 years backlogged. So many of those who were evacuated already have visas pending under that special immigrant visa program, and they just aren't processed because there's too many applicants. So we really do hope that they allow people to be processed as refugees and come in to the U.S. in the refugee category. And in fact, those who are coming now, they aren't relegated to that category, but they're not undocumented. They have a status. It's just not very easy for most to understand what that status is, and it's a very negative word. They're paroled into the U.S., but it's a humanitarian parole. That's what it is. But it sounds an awful like a criminal, so we don't use that word frequently. It's a 15-person passenger van. Mm-hmm.
And how far are you along the goal?
I'm not.
We're at
15,000.
Yes, we're at 15,000 now, with a goal of 15,000.
So the notion also is that the van is how Hudson is contributing to our communities, the Afghan community's needs. And so we do hope to highlight the DEI Alliance and the Hudson Community Foundation on the van. And we kind of want to keep it Hudson themed for that purpose, so that, but we also need the van, so there is, we want to kind of encourage all to give and know that as soon as we can get to the point where we are able to purchase the van, the better we're able to serve the communities that we are seeking to resettle. We do have a van. It is just always in the shop. And Kevin laughs because it is never not being repaired. And I love our maintenance guys, because they're never going to kick us out the door and say, you need to get rid of this van, but we need to get rid of that van. It's not even safe, but our case managers are using their own cars right now. So, and we have families of 8 to 12 sometimes, so it's just not, it's not possible. It's for our client. It's transporting our clients. It's a passenger van. It's not going to be to do housing setups. And we actually have other vehicles that we can use for housing setups. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Maybe I missed it, but you just mentioned housing. Do you help the refugees get settled in housing? How does that work?
Yes, so we find out that we usually get 2 weeks' notice or a month's notice that somebody's coming, but in the Afghan crisis, we are not receiving much notice at all. We get a couple days' notice. We have a housing specialist and a team of volunteers that work with him, who are responsible for working with our local landlords and community partners, relationships that we've built over many years, to find affordable, low-income rental real estate for them. They pay their own rent. We don't pay their rent. I think people have this perception that we pay all their bills. We do not pay their bills. That's why it's really important for us to help them get, ready for their first job, get them an interview. They get a small amount of direct government assistance that will get them usually through the first few weeks of their life here, or their first rent check that they may have to pay. But that it's about $1,000, so it's not a lot. You know, I wasn't sure what it was going to look like. Right now, I think it's about a third. A third speak basic English, 1/3 don't read or write in any language, and then 1/3 are kind of in the middle. They speak probably very, very broken English. But those who speak basic English speak very well because they worked closely with our military. And in fact, we've hired already a couple community support specialists because of their language skills. People who resettled less than 2 months ago are working for us and also receiving our services. But it's a great way to be able to serve the community, is to have some of their own cohorts working with us to help serve them. They also teach us how to do that well. Yes? Right now, she asked, is there a particular area in Akron where we're resettling individuals? We're finding housing for people mostly in North Hill still. 65% of the people we resettled last year have rental housing in North Hill, but 35% are elsewhere in Akron. We also have a small population in Stowe right now of Afghans that we resettled, because we have a landlord here, I think, because of what was on the news, and possibly because of some of the activities with Hudson. They learned of us and reached out, and we decided to partner and help create solutions. There's a couple landlords who were operating assisted living facilities that were vacant because of the pandemic, and they just converted those to studio apartments, which helped us find housing for the single males that were coming, because it's really hard to rent as a single male and afford it right now. Rents are going up, as you all know, because of the pandemic. But we've been very successful. Everybody's had a warm bed on their first day here. Everybody's had a home within a month. And, you know, we're sometimes getting notice on Friday that we have airport pickups on Monday. Or on Friday, we'll find out we have airport pickups on Sunday. So that's not a lot of time to find a place for someone to live. So our resettlement team is they're doing an amazing job. Any more questions? All right. Oh. Most of the, she asked about education for the children. Most of our families are living in the Akron Public School District, and we are very close partnered with Akron Public Schools, and there's a very easy enrollment process with the public school systems. Is that still accurate? The Akron Public Schools manages that, and they have family support specialists now. So one of the things they're seeking to do is bridge that divide, and they do a lot of English language learning within the school system. Mm-hmm. They have programs for. Okay, is that good? All right, I think I'm going to turn this back over to Jen. Thanks, Jen.
So thank you so much. We want to thank all of you for coming this evening, and it will be, for those of you who might have friends that might want to take a look, it'll be on the First Congregational Church's YouTube channel as well, I was told. We're very thankful to the First Congregational Church for partnering with us, Sue Weimer, Liz Teed, Reverend Peter Wiley, Laura Jones, and all of you for hosting, the International Institute of Akron for coming, and you saw our many community partners, from the schools to the nonprofits to Rotary and the International Women's Club and others. So thank you so much. If you'd like to contribute, The Hudson Community Foundation actually has, if you look at their funds, they have one set up for the International Institute of Akron for the van specifically. So that's what we in Hudson, as our collaborative effort, are trying to reach that goal of 50,000, now at 15,600, I think is what it is. And in addition to that, if you'd like to let Sue or Liz know here at First Congregational, or even for those of you watching, Amy Jordan, reach out to her. We'd be happy to have you join our monthly calls so that we can collaborate to meet the needs so they don't end up with 4,000 toothbrushes and not enough mittens. So is our hope, which sometimes happens. And so that's why we wanted to collaborate across organizations to make sure that we met the needs that were immediate. So big thank you to all of you in the city of Hudson, all of the nonprofits, the churches, and a big thanks again to the International Institute of Akron and my colleagues from the Hudson Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Alliance. So thank you so much. Have a good evening. For any of you who didn't ask your questions yet, we've got Kevin and Madhu who are here. Hudson Community Television was ending right at 8, but they're here if you'd like to chat. So thank you so much.